Hello, everyone. My name is Steve Dubin, and I am the host of South Shore Senior News's podcast, My Generation. On an ongoing basis, we bring folks on who have something of value to offer to seniors, the sandwich generation who will help take care of them, and other professionals in the field. Today, we have a wonderful guest uh, who is kind enough to provide me with a good bio so that I don't have to stammer as much as usual to do the introduction. Peg Doyle is with us today. She's a highly regarded health coach and founder of Wellness in You. She serves clients throughout the US now because of the wonders of Zoom. She's a frequent guest on a variety of media outlets. She recently wrote a new booklet called Joyful Old Dame, which we look forward to hearing more about. And she thrives to help seniors live healthier and offset the stereotype of ageism. She's also a certified nutrition counselor, a Reiki Master, and holds a graduate certificate in Gerontology from the University of Mass. And with all of those accolades, I welcome you to the show, Peg.
Well, thank you, Steve. I feel like the accolades were written by me, so that's a little bit self-centered, I guess.
Well, it's a good description, and it gives people the sense of sort of the road that brought you here, and that you do have uh, credentials. So you've earned it. So don't be shy. All right. So let me ask you some questions. Um, how do you communicate with your audience in general when you're working with folks? What's the process?
The process it begins with listening, giving people space to identify what their issues are and to think about how they got to where they are and where they'd like to go. Because my belief is that wherever we are on the spectrum of health, we can get better with some lifestyle changes and some belief in our body's innate ability to heal.
So I've had a physical therapist say to me, it took you over 60 years to get in the pretzel position you're in now. So don't expect our 9 sessions to completely change that. You need to be a participant on an ongoing long-term basis to impact change. That being said, um, what are some of the views that you try to share with clients about how to change behaviors so that it can be a longer lasting impact as opposed to just another thing they've tried in their lives?
That's such a great question, Steve. The thing I emphasize most is to go slowly, to take small steps, because whether we're talking about an exercise program, I hate that word, I like to use movement program, or meditation, or writing, or painting, or eating better, or sleeping better, it's most successful when we don't overreach at the beginning, because sometimes we get discouraged if we don't have immediate results. But if you can do one thing, for instance, with nutrition, if you've been having coffee and Danish for breakfast, if, say, twice a week, you have oatmeal with walnuts and blueberries for breakfast. That's a simple step, a simple change. And it's enough for you to begin to think, wow, I'm not hungry as soon as I am when I have that Danish. And it's pretty good when I put the blueberries in or the banana in. And maybe I even like the oatmeal and I forgot that I like that. So to take small steps usually leads to the longest success.
Okay, you're still not going to talk me out of my carrot cake muffin every now and then.
Every now and then is
All right,
great.
okay,
In
good.
my book, Food Becomes You, I talk about the 90-10 uh, ratio, and I've actually eased up to 80-20. And by that, I mean, if you can get yourself eventually to a level where 80% of your food are simple whole foods, nourishing foods, just relax on the other 20. That's not what causes the harm. It's when it's flipped the other way, and 80% of the time we're eating junk.
Yeah.
And, so that's how it works. If you look at your level of well-being today and you make a plan to make a couple of small changes for the next week, and then you stay with them and build a couple more changes into the next week. That's how we make lasting change.
Okay, great. Well, and so let's talk about ageism in general and the kind of messages that we get from mass media. What do you think the impact of that is, and how do you try to counteract that with your clients?
Sure. The impact of that, in my opinion, is the message that we should be taking more drugs and that drugs are the answer to all of our maladies. And I'm sure everybody in your audience notices the music and the picnics and the dancing and the parades and all the joyful messages that are coming through video while we're hearing may cause heart failure, sudden death, knee pain, nausea, all the rest of it. So the messaging really is that if we want to be vibrant like these people in the ads, we need to take medication. The other message is through the cosmetic industry that there are all sorts of things we can do to not look like ourselves. Well, why not look like ourselves? Why not be authentic and do the best we can with what we have, but not to have a feeling of disdain for ourselves because we're older. I think ageism also filters into medical opinions. I recently worked with a 93-year-old woman who it was assumed she was incapable of driving simply because she was 93. And she went forward with a driving assessment and passed with flying colors. So we're all different, and to recognize that ageism is about your chronological age, and it's not about who you are as a human being and how you function in life. So we can't pigeonhole everybody as being the same just because of an age.
Okay, great. I think that's a great answer. So, your first book, Food Becomes You: Simple Steps for Lifelong Wellness. Um, you sort of describe the importance of food for longevity. Can you sort of expand a little bit about that?
Yes, food is a major contributor to our longevity because as the title implies, it does become us. It becomes our blood, our tissue, our organs, our brain, our mood. Everything that we put in our bodies has an influence on us, whether it is positive or negative. The negative comes from highly processed, high sugar, high salt kinds of foods that really do nothing to nourish our bodies. And very often, as people grow older, they have less of an appetite, which means more attention rather than less attention needs to be placed on eating nutrient dense foods, because if we're getting less in our bodies, we have to get good mileage out of what we're putting in.
Okay. And so there's a book called Atomic Changes, which you might be familiar with, which is really about sort of a grain of sand changes at a time so that we can manage that change and accept it in a more natural way. Um, is that part of, sort of your approach to shifting both our perspective about food and the choices we make?
Absolutely. It definitely matters that we look at it from that perspective, that one simple grain of change is going to lead to larger changes and improve our health. I have a personal story that as I was growing up, I thought I was allergic to all fresh fruits. I would get hives in my mouth. And fruit is a natural source of fructose. And that's the quick energy sugar. It's in fruit, it's a natural sugar. In M&Ms and Milky Ways and Hostess cupcakes, it's not. So because I wasn't able to get my natural fructose from fruit, I was a sweet addict. I had cookies and candy and all that stuff every day. By the time I was in my late 40s, my triglycerides were very elevated. And fortunately, my glucose was still okay. But someone one day offered me an apple, and I said, I'm sorry, I can't eat apples. And she asked me why, and she told me it was organic. And truth be told, I didn't know what that meant back then. And she explained that an organic fruit hasn't been exposed to pesticides or chemical fertilizers. Well, I took a bite and I didn't have that reaction. So a light went off in my head. I realized all these years it wasn't the fruit, it was the chemicals. I started eating fruit, and 6 months later, only 6 months later, I went in to see my doctor, and my triglycerides had dropped 200 points. So that's the power of the body to heal. When you eat the right things, having all that wonderful fruit made me crave the sweets far less because I was getting the fructose I needed. So that really made a difference in my health and spawned my interest in studying nutrition and well-being.
Okay. And so you mentioned organic. When I think of organic, I think of supermarkets like Whole Foods and I think of potentially more expensive food as well. Um, how do you respond to folks who are on fixed budgets, who are concerned that they may not be able to afford the healthy food that they prefer to have?
It's such a good question. So there are several approaches to that, Steve. One being that when you go shopping, before you check out, look in your basket and see what's in there that's highly processed foods, chips and boxes of candy, things like that. And just kind of mentally take those out of your grocery bill. You don't even have to take them out of your basket at this point, but just start thinking about what those foods cost and what they're giving you nutritionally, which is nothing, and making your system work harder to process them. So that's one thing. Another thing is many of the what are they called? The farmers markets have accept EBT cards, which are discounted for elders who have reduced income. So that's another thing. Another area is becoming a shareholder in a community supported agriculture farm. And that overall, I've found I use them every year. It's about $20 a week for a bag of organic fruits and vegetables. So I think that's comparable with what you would get conventionally. There's also a website called ewg.org that every year measures the pesticide content in fruits and vegetables, and they name two lists. One is the dirty dozen. Those are the ones they recommend you should always buy organic. And the other is the clean 15. For whatever reason, those fruits and vegetables don't absorb the pesticides as heavily as do the dirty dozen. So that's something else you can look at. And all in all, when you're eating unprocessed whole foods, your grocery bill won't go up significantly.
Okay. And I have heard that really the healthiest and sometimes the least expensive way to shop is to go around the perimeter of your grocery store because that typically has fresh produce and on the other side, fresh dairy.
Absolutely. The only detours I take through the grocery store are to buy organic canned beans because I'm too lazy to soak them and cook them for hours, and oils, olive oil and vinegar. Vinegars are great. I might get some pickles, something like that. But most of what you find in the middle aisles are not worthwhile. There is a website everybody can use, or an app, I should say, called Yuka, Yuka, that you can take, if you have a cell phone, you can put it up to the code on the back of the product and it will rate it from 0 to 100. Just an FYI, Oreos are 0. So if you love cookies, make your own.
Yeah, it's funny. I have that app. I do
Oh,
use that app, and I'm often disappointed with with its results, but that's okay. I can handle the truth. Um, what are some of the other suggestions you have beyond food to have a positive impact on your health?
Sure. Well, my book, Joyful Old Dame, is addressed to women, but it applies to men too, because I include what I call the 5 pillars of lifelong wellness. To me, it starts with a steady, nutrient dense way of eating. The second thing is movement. We're meant to move. We have joints that are designed to keep us going and moving. We need quality sleep. We need to learn how to manage our stress. That's a big factor in longevity. And finally, what could be the most important one is social connection. We all struggled with that through the pandemic, and loneliness is epidemic in our country, and social connection fixes all that, whether it's through a club, through South Shore Seniors, through church, through family, through neighbors. We really need to have a connection with other people.
Sure. Yeah, great. Um, and then if you were to sort of point somebody in the direction of here's one single thing you really should do that can impact your life, what is that?
Whoa, one single thing. That's a tough question. I think in the 5 areas I just mentioned, nutrition, movement, sleep, stress management, and social connection, what I would recommend is that you look at each of those and think about what's really missing from my life right now and start there. If it's sleep, really look at what your sleep habits are and see if you can make some corrections, even if it's as simple as cooling down the bedroom at night, having better bedding, turning off the television or computer at least an hour before you go to sleep, things like that, so that you don't make it terribly complicated, but you find that you're making progress. So, same with movement or stress management, social connection, or nutrition. It's thinking about where do I need to do the most work and start there.
Great. Well, our time together has come to an end, but I would like to give our audience a chance to reach out to you. What's the best way to find you?
Probably the best way to find me, Steve, would be through my website, which is Wellness and You, which is in my name here on the screen. And it's wellnessandyou.com. And through that, there's an opportunity to make contact with me. On my blog, there are hundreds of simple recipes you can put together in 20 minutes or less. There's news about health and longevity. So it's I like to think of it as a storybook of life.
Well, thank you. I've really enjoyed our conversation. I look forward to talking with you again in the future.
Wonderful. I would love to do that with you as well, Steve. So thank you.
All right. Take care.